Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of Elvis. This movie is directed by Baz Luhrmann, who previously did Romeo and Juliet, Moulin Rouge, and The Great Gatsby. This movie stars Austin Butler and Tom Hanks. Now, the plot of this movie, as the title suggests, is this movie is about Elvis, the man, the legend. But this story isn't your typical biopic, no. This movie is told through the perspective of the Colonel, Tom Parker, played by Tom Hanks. Now, this man, despite his best efforts to help Elvis throughout his career, ended up doing more harm than good. So this film is going to have a little bit of a bias to it. Now, when I first heard they were doing another Elvis movie, I was like, okay, it's 2022, why not? The last Elvis thing I remember them doing was with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, who did a pretty good job, and they've done Elvis biopics and movies, and even Elvis characters in so many movies. But whether it's The Identical, whether it's the Kurt Russell movie, whether Elvis has had multiple appearances in Forrest Gump, 3,000 Miles to Graceland, True Romance, what have you. Elvis has been done forever. But I saw that Baz Luhrmann was directing this, and so I figured, okay, this is probably going to be good, because it's going to have a musical style, a musical twist to it. It's not going to be as over the top like Rocket Man, but maybe something more akin to like Bohemian Rhapsody, where things are a little over the top, a little exaggerated, with Baz Luhrmann style to it. And after seeing this movie, I can honestly say the movie was just that. Now, I would say the first 20-25 minutes of this movie has all the Baz Luhrmann aesthetic that you'd expect from a movie like his. But after a while, it kind of fades away, which I'll get to in a moment. So, Baz Luhrmann takes this life of Elvis, and he presents it in a way it's like a fever dream, because it's a lot all at once. The movie starts out, but not as your typical biopic, where it shows the early life. It shows a scene later in the movie, and then it kind of flashes back to the beginning of it. And the movie is, of course, narrated by the Colonel Tom Parker. So you're going to have his perspective on a lot of things. But the first act of the movie is told in such a rapid, such a different way that you'd have a setting, a building, a time frame, and it would all be in like fancy text to kind of blend in with the surroundings. Everything would be bright and colorful, almost as if it was like a fever dream, because everything is so quick, and it's almost like a montage where it shows a scene, and then the Colonel flashes back to something to set up that scene. But again, that only lasts for the first 25 minutes of the movie, and then the film becomes your typical biopic, which is not a bad thing. It's still entertaining. It just changes its tone. Baz Luhrmann also does the thing like he did in The Great Gatsby and Moulin Rouge and Romeo and Juliet, where he takes contemporary songs and aspects, technology, and he puts it in the past, if that makes any sense. For example, there's a scene where Elvis Presley is driving his car to this club where he can go jam out with B.B. King and Little Richard and others, but it plays like modern rap songs to it, which is a different choice. Again, it's entertaining, but it's sometimes a little out of place. So he does that here. But once the film reaches, I'd say, probably the halfway point, that's when it becomes your typical formulaic biopic. But that's when things change in the movie, because for a good chunk of the film, Austin Butler just appears, looks, to me, like Austin Butler. But once it reaches a certain point in the story where Elvis changes his look, he's tanner, he's grown up, that's when he stops becoming Austin Butler, the actor, and it becomes Elvis, the character, the person. And Austin Butler is amazing in this movie. Not only does he sing all the songs, but he took 2 years out of his life to watch, mimic, study Elvis. So his acting definitely, and his dedication definitely pays off in this movie. It's hard to believe it's the same guy from the MTV show Shannara Chronicles. If you know what I'm talking about, he's come a long way from that sci-fi fantasy show. And some of you may remember him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He played Tex, the fateful Tex, in that movie as well. But I'm glad Austin Butler finally has something he can make his own and something he'll finally be noticed for. He definitely deserves an Oscar for this role. And Tom Hanks, America's Dad. He's really good in this movie. He's one of those actors for the longest time, like Dustin Hoffman, that I thought could never play a bad guy role. Nope. His role as Colonel Tom Parker is very unlikable, very despicable. You can tell it's Tom Hanks under there, but after a while, he just becomes this seedy, leech-like character that once he gets his claws into Elvis, it's hard to get him off and to go away. And he does a really good job. It's a character that you just love to hate. The co-stars in this movie, some of them were surprising, actually. Richard Roxburgh as Elvis's father. I was surprised to see him. I'm glad he's still acting, but I didn't know he was going to be in this movie. Also, David Wenham plays Hank Snow. He's another performer from Elvis's early days. He's good in this. A couple other characters. The guy that plays the Red Power Ranger, his name's Decree Montgomery, I believe. Him and Luke Bracey, another actor, they play two guys that Elvis meets in the latter half of the movie, kind of like the new crew that Tom Parker disapproves of. They kind of change Elvis's life for the better. All really good. The acting in this film is really good. I can't praise Austin Butler enough for his role in this movie. But something this film does that I was actually surprised by is it shines a light on a lot of things that probably would have gone unknown if it wasn't for biopics like this, where Baz Luhrmann shows what Elvis's life was behind the scenes. And it's actually kind of sad. They reveal that, he was only 42 years old when he died. And it focuses on, very particularly the last 4 years of his life. And it shows you all the things that him and the Colonel and the people behind the crew had to do to get Elvis to perform. They delved into the drug use and all the things that it took to get Elvis Presley to present himself as Elvis Presley. And so it's kind of sad, but this movie is really good. I would put this up there with Bohemian Rhapsody as far as musical biopics go, because it's just, wow. Just like Rami Malek, like I said, for a while you just see the actor as that role, but then after a while you just believe he is that person. And that's what Austin Butler was able to do as Elvis. So this movie was really good, a pleasant surprise. I'm glad Baz Luhrmann was able to direct this, because I feel like if it would have fallen to anyone else's hands, it would have been just a boring, bland, by-the-numbers biopic. So because this movie was entertaining, eye-opening, Tom Hanks, Austin Butler, great jobs from them. Because of that, I'm going to give Elvis an A. Till next time, guys. See ya.